Welcome to Carven Software's instructional videos of Staffing Complete. Checklist items are the software's way of disallowing certain actions to happen if the checklist is not completed. For the personnel checklist, all checklist items must be marked completed before the personnel can be added to an order. If an incomplete checklist item exists, the software will notify you of the issue when adding a personnel to an order, and it will not allow you to add the personnel until all checklist items are completed. Remember, all checklist items are completely customizable to fit your needs. This video will review all items regarding the checklist in the personnel module, including locating the checklist, marking the checklist complete, resetting the checklist, reloading a checklist, customizing the checklist in Staffing Complete, and reviewing Staffing Complete user permissions associated with this checklist. The first thing that needs to be set up in order to utilize the checklist feature in Staffing Complete is customization of the checklist items in the Setup module. Start by navigating to the Setup module. Click on the Checklist tab at the top of the page. Click Insert at the top of the screen and move down to the bottom of the page. The first thing that you will want to select is the office that you would like the checklist item to be applicable for. If you would like it to be applicable across all offices in the database, leave this field blank. Since this checklist is for the personnel, the customer field is inapplicable and should be left blank. Under Type, select Personnel. The next field you will enter is the item name. The text that is typed in this field will display in the Personnel module as well as on all reports regarding personnel checklist items, so make sure you choose your text wisely. If someone would like to be notified via email when a certain checklist item is marked complete, you will enter their email address here in the Email To field. Please note, if you are emailing multiple people, make sure to separate the email addresses with a comma. Once the fields have been entered and completed, you will navigate back up to the top of the page and click Save. Repeat this process for every checklist item you would like to add to the Personnel module. Any new personnel entered into the software after the checklist item has been created will have that checklist item pre-populated in the Checklist tab in the Personnel module. Each software user will need the appropriate permissions in order to mark checklist items complete, reset a checklist, or reload a checklist in the Personnel module. These permissions are granted in the Setup module. Start by navigating to the Setup module. Click on the Users tab. Click on the User Accounts tab. Select the software user that you would like to add the permissions to. Once the user is selected, navigate to the Permissions sub-tab at the bottom of the page. On the Permissions tab, you will go to the Personnel sub-tab. The first access you will grant is the appropriate tab access within Staffing Complete. On the right-hand side, you will see a series of radio buttons. D stands for Default Access. This is the access that most users will need. R stands for Read-Only Access. This means the software user can see all data on the tab, but cannot interact with the data on the tab in any way. The H stands for Hidden. If H is selected, the tab will be hidden and will not display for that user. If the user needs to check off, reset, or reload checklist items in the Personnel module, the radio button for D, Default Access, next to Checklist will need to be marked. Additionally, there are 3 checklist item permissions that may need to be assigned. If you would like the software user to mark personnel checklist items complete, check the box next to Personnel Checklist. If you would like the software user to have the ability to reset checklist items, check the box next to Personnel Checklist Reset. If you would like the software user to have the ability to reload checklist items, check the box next to Personnel Checklist Reload. The software user will mark a checklist complete or reset or reload a checklist in the Personnel module. Navigate to the Personnel module. Pull up the desired personnel by using the Find It tab to search. Double-click on the desired personnel. Navigate to the Checklist tab at the top of the screen. All checklist items for this personnel will be displayed here. All checklist items that are blank under the Entered By and Timestamp fields are not marked completed. To mark a checklist item complete, right-click on that item and select Mark Completed. Once the checklist item is marked completed, the Entered By and Timestamp fields will auto-populate with the software user's information. If an item was marked in error or that item has expired, like a piece of paperwork that needs to be returned in, you will need to mark uncompleted on this checklist item. To do this, right-click on the item and select Mark Uncompleted. If the checklist items have changed and have been re-entered or altered in the Setup module, you will need to reload the personnel's checklist before the changes will take effect. To do this to one specific personnel, right-click anywhere in the grid and select Reload Items. The new checklist items will now be displayed. There are several bulk checklist features that can be completed in Staffing Complete. Navigate to the Setup module. Click on the Checklists tab. If there is a checklist item that you would like to add to all personnel in the database, find the desired item, right-click on that item, and select Bulk Add. A pop-up box will appear confirming you would like to add that checklist item to all personnel. Click Yes. This feature is particularly helpful when a new checklist item has been created after personnel profiles have been entered into the software and the checklist item needs to be added to existing personnel's profiles. Please note, the checklist item selected during the Bulk Add feature will add to the module that's notated in the Type column. If there's a specific checklist item you would like to remove from all personnel, right-click on that item, select Bulk Remove, select All. A pop-up box will appear confirming you would like to remove that checklist item from the personnel. Click Yes. If you would like to remove all completed or uncompleted checklist items, right-click anywhere in the grid, select Bulk Remove, and then select the appropriate action. If you would like to mark a checklist item completed or uncompleted, right-click on that item, select Bulk Complete, and select the appropriate action. For the personnel checklist, all checklist items must be marked completed before the personnel can be added to an order. If an incomplete checklist item exists, the software will notify you of the issue when adding a personnel to the order and will not allow you to add the personnel until all checklist items are marked completed. For more information regarding the Checklist tab in the Personnel module, please visit our wiki at the address linked on the screen.